Hello, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by David Watson. David is the head of energy transition at Cadent Gas. Cadent Gas is one of the major gas suppliers mainly in the northwest of England. So welcome, David. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much indeed for the invitation, Dean. It's very good to be here.
So you're one of our speakers at the forthcoming World Hydrogen UK event, which I think is the 9th to the 11th of April in London. Obviously, a lot of interest, I guess, is turning to hydrogen in the UK. We've seen some policy finally begin to come out from the government, and we've seen some momentum building. There's a number of sort of big, I guess, big hydrogen hubs, and I think a couple of them are in your area. So what is your take of the sort of big picture around where we are in the journey to sort of building a hydrogen industry in the UK, and where are we particularly with policy, I guess, to start with?
It's a really positive story, actually, Dean. If I go back a couple of years ago when I joined Cadent, low carbon hydrogen really existed on paper. It was an idea in the industry's mind and on the desks of government. And certainly in the last 6 months, or even less actually, just before Christmas, we've really seen momentum pick up on policy. So we've had on the production side, the UK government have run recent auctions for green hydrogen, and we've procured the first green hydrogen projects across the country. Around 175 megawatts have been contracted with more to come this year, taking up to around a gig. We've seen the agreements in principle for the development of blue hydrogen production up at the HyNet project, which I'll maybe talk about a little bit in coming up, and on the east coast as well. Some investments being made there as well on a Saltend chemical plant, which again point to the direction, and that's really been unlocked by the policy development the government has done, both in terms of defining what low carbon hydrogen looks like, setting in place the policy frameworks and the regulatory frameworks that enable investors to take decisions. And we're going to see that continue through 2024 as well. So my big focus, we're a pipeline company. We own gas pipelines, and we're interested in helping build the infrastructure necessary to underpin all of this. We're looking forward to the finalisation of the hydrogen transportation and storage business models, which will underpin the investments that we need to take. And also we're looking forward to further regulation on the off-taker side as well. So helping industrial users who we work a lot with in our region understand what that transition looks like, when it's going to happen, and how they can transition their industrial processes to low carbon fuels like hydrogen as well. So it's a positive story here in the UK right now.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned some of those projects. You mentioned you obviously got a huge amount of industrial customers. The network, the pipeline network you have is how ready is that for hydrogen? Hydrogen is obviously clearly a different gas, and it comes with it all sorts of issues when it comes to moving it around.
Yeah, so we own about 130,000 kilometres of pipeline in the UK today, and that is largely ready for hydrogen. And I say largely ready. There's still quite a bit of old cast iron pipe in the network today, but over the last 20, 30 years, not necessarily to get the network ready for hydrogen, but just for operational or asset replacement cycles. We've been updating that, replacing that cast iron pipe work and replacing it with plastic piping, which it has the happy benefit of also being ready to take hydrogen. So I'd say at the moment about 75% of our network is plastic and could take hydrogen. The complication, maybe that's not the right word, but the complication is that at the moment those pipes carry methane to people that need it in both industrial, power sector, commercial and domestic, and so we can't put a pure blend of hydrogen into those pipes. We can blend up to about 20%, but at the moment it's purely methane in there. And so when we're speaking with industrial off-takers who are looking for early low carbon hydrogen, what that means is that we are looking at brand new hydrogen pipelines for projects such as HyNet and over in the East Coast around the Humber as well. But that picture will change over time as we see people transition away from methane, and that asset becomes more and more available for hydrogen. But certainly in the near to medium term, we're looking at new hydrogen pipelines and new hydrogen infrastructure to support early adopters.
Yeah, that's understood. And so you mentioned that those projects. Where are we in the phase of developing those projects? They have got huge potential, but obviously you have to start in the stepping stones of I guess phases and sort of pre-feasibility. So how are those projects developing?
Yeah, so they're still largely on paper. The up at HyNet, that's probably the leading example. So this is the northwest of the UK, around Liverpool, Manchester, Cheshire, Ellesmere Port. For those of you that really know the area, um, the first developments are taking place. So we've just had an agreement with government and hydrogen producers, EET in the area, to a statement of principles has been agreed for the development of the blue hydrogen production plant that's going to create the blue hydrogen that's going to then decarbonise industry in that area. Clearly, the off-takers are already there. They're already established industries within the area. And what's happening now is that we're speaking with the off-takers, with the producers that are coming there to design the. So we've designed the route the pipeline will be taking, and we're going through consenting processes, design processes, so that we can have that infrastructure ready around the end of the decade.
Right. Yeah. So it's a big project, and that the industrial users, some of those early adopters. I mean, I think did you mention is it the Stanislow refinery?
The Stanloy Oil Refinery, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and also I think some glassworks up there and so. Right.
There's the thing about the Northwest. So this was the industrial heartland, right? So like about 200 years ago, this is where the industrial revolution happened.
Yeah.
And even to this day, although it's no longer cotton mills and textile plants, there's a wide variety of industry located right across that region. It's one of the industrial powerhouses of the UK. And so some of the organisations that are already signed up to the HyNet project and will be taking the low carbon hydrogen that is produced in the area. We've got glassworks, where we're already people like Pilkingtons have already made green glass as a test there using pure hydrogen. We've got food and drink manufacturers up there. We have chemicals, refineries. We have automotive sector. Or there's a wide amount of a wide variety of industrial processes up in the area where hydrogen will play part of a role in decarbonising that industry, protecting jobs and value across the region.
Yeah, excellent. And the other project you mentioned was on the East Coast. How's that proceeding?
Yes, so that's proceeding excellent as well. So it's slightly behind HyNet in terms of the development, but not by much. And again, it's a huge variety of industrial use cases right across the Humber there. And so we're working with partners again on as part of the East Coast Hydrogen Project to understand. Well, initially we've been understanding where the demand is likely to be, where the production is likely to be, and that then enables us to draw the plans on where these maps, where the pipelines are going to be needed. And that's the stage we're at now, where we've got to we understand where those pipelines are needed, and we're just at the point now where we're looking to start going into feed processes around the infrastructure that's required in that region. So again, it's sort of 2030, around the early 2030s, that project will be very much live.
Yeah, excellent. And in terms of I guess this is the beginning, I guess, in the UK. What are your thoughts around the overall, I guess, vision? The UK is blessed with a lot of offshore wind potential. That there, people talking gigawatts and gigawatts and gigawatts. But obviously, it is about balancing the grid. Clearly, it's not windy all the time. There's the famous Dunkelflaute, I think the Germans call it, sit over the North Sea, and opportunities there to help balance the grid. Is that how you see as a sort of big driver for hydrogen as well as the industrial users you've just been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the UK have got a clear mandate and right across the piece to get to net zero by 2050. That's going to require the decarbonisation and the expansion of the electricity grid quite substantially to handle quite an increase in the amount of electricity load. In order to get there, we're going to see large amounts of renewables. The power sector will be decarbonised by 2035. And by 2030, the plan is to move from around 14 gigawatts of offshore wind in the UK to around 50 gigawatts. So we're looking at huge expansion in the power sector, and the nature of renewables, we accept it will be intermittent, and that means that in times of high supply and low demand, you're going to need a way of storing that energy, and batteries will play a role. There'll be some demand side response there as well, but hydrogen has clear advantages as a long-term store of energy, and that's going to be very important. On the on the demand side as well, yes, a lot of processes can be electrified right across industry, commercial, and domestic, transportation clearly as well. But there will be some hard to abate sectors where hydrogen has a role to play there as well. And the government has a strategy around assisting off-takers. There's money going in to help off-takers, particularly on the industrial sector. There is a hydrogen to power strategy being developed so that we can understand how hydrogen can provide flexible, low carbon peaking services to the power sector as well. And the government are even investigating the role hydrogen could play in decarbonising residential heating, with about 85% of homes today currently using methane through gas boilers. That we're expecting a heat policy decision in 2026. And so on both on the supply side and on the demand side, we're expecting hydrogen to play quite a significant role in the UK. What I'd say on the managing that intermittency for on the power side for power producers, to your direct question then, Nadeem, there's one of the features the UK has is that there's a significant reliance on offshore wind. I'm looking out my window here. It's not always as sunny in the UK as it is elsewhere in Europe. And so while solar is going to play a role, really we are pulling the offshore wind lever quite hard. And what that means is that the profile of your renewable power output is going to be a lot peakier than it is in other places around the world, including Europe, where you can offset intermittency in wind, where your solar production may be making up some of the peaks and troughs. And so there's perhaps more of an opportunity, I would argue, in the UK for things like green hydrogen production. And the people that we're speaking to in the power sector, we're finding that projects these days, they're almost always co-location of renewables with something like an electrolyzer or a battery project to try and iron out the intermittency of supply. So huge opportunity, I think, particularly in green hydrogen in the coming years.
Yeah, and then we need to collect that green hydrogen and move it around by your pipeline. And in terms of sort of mass storage, we hear about the salt caverns, and again, I guess it's worth pointing out the UK is quite geologically blessed there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So there are lots of different ways in which you can store hydrogen, but if you want to store it at scale, then one of the cheapest and best ways is to use salt caverns. And just the geology around the UK, we have plenty of salt strata in the UK which we're able to exploit, and indeed that's the plan up in some of our projects, where the storage that's needed to underpin the project will be new salt cavern development. In addition, the UK has quite a lot of depleted gas fields in the North Sea, in the Irish Sea, for example, which you can use to store hydrogen as well, and or carbon if it's, say, a blue hydrogen project and you need somewhere to put the carbon. So there's plenty of potential in the UK. I think storage is one part of the value chain where I think people need to really realize the lead times that's required to develop this sort of thing. And so I know government are particularly focused on what can we do now to bring forward storage infrastructure, given the fact it takes so long to move from concept to delivery. And so that's an area I'm expecting some policy progress within 2024.
Yeah. And is there anything else you're looking forward to in terms of coming from the government side? You're obviously quite positive so far, but further regulation you're waiting for?
So I genuinely am positive on the policy outlook in the UK. I do think that there's been a tremendous amount of progress in the last 6 months from the energy department within government in getting policy out there or getting consultation started. The one area I would say that we need to focus more on, having seen quite a lot of progress on the production side and the promise of progress on the storage and transportation side, is on the off-taker side. So there is money for off-takers to aid with their industrial decarbonisation plans, and we have things in place as well, like the UK ETS. We have things like the carbon border adjustment mechanism coming into the UK, all of which should stimulate investment on the off-taker side. What I would say is that feels weaker compared to some of the investment that's available elsewhere. And as we know, capital is very international, particularly in the hydrogen sector. And so I think there's probably more to go out there. So it's something that I'm hoping that all politicians are thinking about as they write their manifestos for the coming election.
Yeah. Indeed. Excellent. Well, many thanks, David. It's great chatting to you. It's great to get a positive take on what's occurring in the UK. As I said, you're going to be at our World Hydrogen UK event, London, come 9th, 10th, 11th, I think, of April. So we look forward to meeting you face to face, and thanks for taking the time out of your day to share your insight with us.
It's my pleasure, and I thank you for the invite as well. And I'm looking forward to meeting yourself and anybody else that's coming down in April, and look forward to the discussions and the sharing of insight there.
Excellent. Many thanks. Take care. Bye bye.